Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. We're here to talk about the industry trends that are driving change in pharmaceutical and biotechnology workforces. We have Accenture joining us, who's one of our key consulting partners here at Orgvue. And so we have Cherene and Shikha here joining the conversation. Thank you so much. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Amalia Stein. I'm a senior account manager here at Orgvue, and I work with our customers in the pharmacy and biotech industries. We have Cherene Powell, who's a managing director with Accenture, North America's business, and leads the operating model and organizational design practice. And we also have Shikha Tyagi, who's the managing director with Accenture's Europe strategy business and leads the life sciences and talent organizational offerings. So the structure of this conversation is going to be that we're exploring the key trends in the pharmaceutical and biotechnology sectors. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what's happening, and then Cherene and Shikha will add their perspectives on what this means from the organizational design and workforce planning perspective. So what we're seeing is that supply chain strategies in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries, these companies, they're undergoing a fundamental reset. There's a combination of macro forces that are driving these organizations to rethink their pricing strategies around the most favored nation structures. And they're revisiting that location footprint strategy and trying to align the workforce with this constantly evolving business strategy, as well as the impact of AI. We're seeing that everywhere. And so as a result, the workforce strategy itself is becoming a mainstay of business strategy, and the organizations are rethinking how they approach it. The most resilient businesses are taking a forward-looking approach and devising a way to avoid getting into more of a reactive mode. And at Orgvue, we call this the intentional enterprise and this intentional forward-looking planning. But I'd like to hear from our experts in the pharma and bio space to see how it's playing out with their customers. So Shikha, to you, I mentioned that most favored nation structures that are driving the companies to rethink their pricing strategies. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely, Amalia. So what is most favored nation policy anyway? Most pharma companies used to previously have this average reference pricing, meaning a basket of countries they use as their reference, and they would use the average from it to drive pricing conversations. With some of the legislations and conversations happening, especially in the US, what is happening is that now the pharma companies are being asked to price drugs in the US based on not the average, but the lowest price they're offering to any comparable country. Now, this has far-reaching implications. It has implications for international pricing spillovers. What if I was to launch my drug in a lower-priced country, or let's say even for a humanitarian mission? It has direct implication on, for example, when I was launched in the US, which is the global pricing spillover. Second, I have far less flexibility now as a pharma company in how I am confidentially contracting the pricing with individual countries. Previously, I used to have, pharma companies used to have a higher floor price, but then would start to negotiate a lower price confidentially, setting the benchmarks. But now all of these things have to be quite transparent, thought through, in service of having right price control across all the markets that the companies are operating in, including US. And then finally, and this is more stark for smaller companies, which are largely in the US, with ambitions for the smaller markets, on that they can't really, where the smaller market operations require them to have favorable pricing, they can't really have deep rebates in smaller markets anymore. So what does this mean for organization design operating model? And I think we will talk a bit more about this. First of all, it's yet another thing breaking silos. Pricing pressure, there's a global and local pricing tension in the company. The global wants the right strategy, the right price control. The local wants the most favorable price for their local market. So how do you apply control? Meaning you require a far more joined up operating model. Second, it has distinct implications for the skills. Commercial skills are being pressed downwards in the organization. People sitting in access, people sitting in commercial strategies, more and more individuals have to have very different and sharper commercial skills now. It's turning into far more strategic than merely a single point pricing. So indeed, really interesting times.